the Savior, but as the judge. And if you want to know about that, read Revelation 4 through 19, if you want to get a picture of Christ and his authority as the judge of all things. But the point here is that he has called us to manifest the kind of peace and poise and trust that he had with the Father. The way he did that is that every day he allowed the Father to define him. Every day he would make time and get away from the press of the crowds and the agenda of the world, and he would allow the Father to define him. And sometimes he'd go away to lonely places. And that's where he would really reflect upon the Father's purpose for sending him into this world, and we do well to reflect. You are here on a mission. He's got you here for a reason. You're immortal until the will of God for your life is complete. So therefore, you are an agent. As a steward, what do you own? Nothing. A steward manages the possessions of another. You don't own anything. When we talk about, well, let's see, this is God's portion, this is my portion, nonsense. It's all God's. What you give away is God's, and what you keep is God's. In fact, what you keep, He's going to hold you responsible for. And not only are you a steward who owns nothing, but you're an ambassador, meaning that what? You're about someone else's business. You're not even on your own business. You're representing the affairs of another. Now, if we come to see that you're God's agent in the world, then you realize you have a purpose and a point. It's my conviction that we do well to seek, by the grace of God, to cultivate, to spend time cultivating more intimacy with Jesus than with with other people. Because if you can do that, if you move into that, you will discover that intimacy will give you clarity, perspective, and it'll give you a sense of, again, peace and purpose and poise in the adversities of this life. And it'll energize your activity as well. So that intimacy energizes activity. So we do well to be like Christ, who suffered adversities that we will not know, but who had a calmness. You never see him in a hurry to do the will of God. You see him as a man who trusted the Father's purposes for his life. Any thoughts before I continue on? Turn to me with me to Psalm 131. 131. And as we're turning there, I want to make a comment. We know that afflictions can be manifold. They can be physical. They can be psychological. They can be material. They can be emotional. They can be intellectual. They can be even cultural. But here's the thing. Those who have suffered these kinds of things, the physical and so forth, and the emotional, know that the emotional pain is worse than the physical pain. That there are pains that transcend just physical pain or illness or disease, that there's something else, because we are spiritual beings that are actually experiencing this mortal state. And we are basically eternal beings who are embodied now, but ultimately wait our ultimate embodiment. So that it's going to come at us from various directions. We can't control it. It's a universal issue. But Psalm 131 reminds me of a point of view that we should embrace when he says, "O Lord, my heart is not proud, nor my eyes haughty. Nor do I involve myself in great matters, or in things too difficult for me. Surely I have composed and quieted my soul, like a weaned child rests against his mother. My soul is like a weaned child within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forever." That brief psalm illustrates a perspective, a point of view of a child that is basically enjoying the embrace of the mother. A child who has the simplicity of trust. Unless you become as little children is a metaphor that Jesus uses, because a child has an implicit trust. I mean, remember when you were younger, let's say your dad said, let's get in the car, we're going to go somewhere. Did you say, I'm not getting in there until I know where you're taking me. I'm not sure if I want to go. You know, did you ever do that? Or did you ever have the habit perhaps of saying, I better grab some food and hide it, just in case, because I don't know, they may not feed me tomorrow. You know, that sort of mindset. So you begin to hoard food and clothing just in case they may not provide for you the next day. You never thought of those things because you had an implicit trust in the goodness of your fathers. And if this was true of imperfect parents, how much more can we trust the Father who has all good things at heart for us? Remember how I defined the word benevolence, where that word came from last week? How many were you here last week? I'm just I don't know, maybe you weren't. Benevolence comes from two Latin words. What are they? Come on now. Yes, goodwill. It means bene, which is good, and volens means well. God's will is benevolent. He is a benevolent, loving being who has caused all things to come together, fine-tuned this cosmos to a degree that's unimaginable, and who is in order. He holds all things in His order and in His grip and His grasp. And He is benevolent toward us. And the two things we must embrace, as I often will teach, is A, that God's in control and you're not, and B, that He has your best interests at heart and you don't. You've got to learn those two truths. You thought you were in control? What a joke. And you thought you had your best interests at heart? That was an illusion. You'd have to know the future to know your best interest. You can only judge according to what the road appears to be. But how do you know what is best for you until you see the outcome? Only at the end do we discover whether a thing was the best or not. And so this perspective that we're called to have is a humility and a childlike trust. So when he says, my heart is not proud, nor are my eyes haughty, nor do I involve myself in great matters or in things too difficult for me, David is admitting, and he's not a dimwit. David was a very bright individual, a very capable individual. Yet he said, you know, when it comes down to life itself, it's rich in mystery, and I cannot capture it. Life is full of mystery. And we do well to approach it with humility. Just because a thing doesn't make sense to me doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense. And that is the attitude of humility, to recognize that because I think I can understand it, does that mean it's incorrect? Again, the attitude is, I call this epistemic humility. Epistemic humility is to approach life from a standpoint of openness and discovery and recognizing we don't have all the answers, rather than the cocky arrogance of the new atheism that supposes they have all the answers and so forth. And there is a folly and a foolishness to people in the situation where they're surrounded by mystery and they refuse to believe it. Every living thing is mysterious when you tease it out. Every living thing has mysteries within mysteries within mysteries. Even a blade of grass is more complex than the city of Atlanta. And if you stop and think about that, we do well to humble ourselves. Sometimes God has a way of humbling us for us, right? Humble yourself lest you be humbled was the motto of a group that I used to meet with. You see, it was their attitude is, we'll humble you if you don't humble yourself. You see, that was a great group of guys. It was really a real good affirmation group. Yeah. But the truth is that God may often take toys away, take things that we've clung to so hard because they were holding on to them so tenaciously that they were holding us. And forcing us, prying our hands open to recognize that what we thought was our best interest turned out not to be. And for us to get to the point of humbly turning to Him and calling upon His name, that is a severe mercy of God. That God often brings severe mercies into our lives, not because He is malevolent, but because He, in fact, loves us. We're going to be seeing how our approach to pain is such that effectively we're asking God to love us less, not more. That's effectively what we're going to be doing. Take it away. I don't want all this. But God says there's a purpose. If you trust me for this, how much longer will you have to suffer? How much more pain? How much longer will you have to for just a little while? Remember the verse we talked about? 1 Peter 5:10.